Can I welcome everyone to this September meeting of Colne Town Council, both those here in the chamber and those online. So do we have any apologies? We've got apologies from Sarah and David Coburn Price, from Dorothy Lord, Alice Mann and Brian Wowman. Is there any? Kevin, okay. Are we members happy to accept those apologies? Item 3 is declaration of interest. Is there anything on the agenda that anyone needs to declare an interest on? No? Okay. Item 4 is the minutes of the meeting from the last meeting on Tuesday, the 16th of August. Is there any comments, amendments, issues with those minutes? No? Can I have a proposal then that these are a correct record? Can I have a seconder? Can I have a seconder?
David Clark.
Oh, thank you, David. Right. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 5 is public forum. Now we've got Emma Hartley who's asked to speak at this public forum, and we've got Graham Roach here who's asking to speak. So Emma, would you like to speak first? And what's the subject you want to speak on? Right, okay.
This is right then, guys. So thank you for hearing me speak, and that's very kind of you. It's just a few observations regarding the Colne Neighbourhood Development Plan. And firstly, I want to make it clear that I fully support the concept of a neighbourhood plan for Colne, particularly as we don't have a local plan in place for Pendle. So the plan is currently out for the Regulation 15 consultation. The posters are inviting people to have your say, but we were then advised that the only thing people could comment on is whether it meets the basic conditions. So looking at the basic conditions and the volume of documents to scrutinise, I really don't think the average member of the public, unless they work for planning department, would understand whether these have been met or not. But I have clarified the situation with planning department today, and they've told me that people can say whatever they want to say, and it's for the examiner to deal with the relevance of the comments. And I think this needs making clear to the public, as the previous consultation, which was Regulation 14, was held during the COVID lockdown. At the time, we were being told not to kill our grands. Not many residents commented. I know that efforts were made to engage people, but not many people did engage with it. So the only areas I've looked at, because I'm looking from a protecting the countryside perspective, I've only looked at the green spaces and the housing allocations, as they're obviously relevant to our group. So there are issues with the labelling of green spaces on one of the sites on the master plan, where the numbers basically on the list that people are given don't correspond with the numbers on the map. So it is really confusing trying to work out which green spaces are being saved, which building areas are being developed. But my main concern is that on reading planning department's report, particularly Appendix 2, most of the housing allocations appear to be unviable for various reasons. 4 of the housing allocations that are being proposed are on land that is classed as open space in Waterside. So these residents are living in one of the UK's most deprived areas and need those open spaces just as much, if not more than anyone. So I think we have a moral responsibility to remove those sites. There also seems to be major issues with the green space allocations, as planning department disagree with 16 of the 21 sites and say that they either don't meet the criteria or are already protected by other policies and legislation. So I have no idea how much the wage bill is for the officers in planning department, but I just feel like if we're going to constantly ignore their advice, we're just wasting more of taxpayers' money. As a group, Protect Pendle's Countryside, We spent weeks promoting the Pendle Borough Council Plan Part 2, 10 years in the making. The public engaged with it enthusiastically, and yet it was scrapped at the last minute, leaving all open countryside at risk of speculative development and wasting huge sums of public funds, officers' time, and the public's time. So my question is, would it not make sense to pause this consultation until the issues with the green spaces and the housing allocations have been addressed? Because we're concerned as a group, Protect Pendle's Countryside, that if we spend more time and effort encouraging people to comment on this plan, they could again be wasting their time. As I said in the beginning, we do support the concept of a neighbourhood plan, but we need to be very careful that any plan the public are asked to comment on is fit for purpose and will be passed by an examiner. Otherwise, the council risks losing the public's goodwill and all credibility when it comes to matters concerning local plans. Thank you.
Thank you. So your main issue is that it would make more sense to pause the consultation until all these, whatever it is, I'm not sure, issues that have been raised.
You're asking people to comment on something. As it stands at the moment, it looks highly unlikely that an examiner will pass it. So it just seems like the public yet again are having the time wasted. I feel like if we ask them to consult again in the future on yet another plan, people will just stick their fingers in their ears and say, to be honest, I'm not wasting my time again. So I just think we just need to be really, really careful. What we're putting in front of the examiner is going to be passed.
Graham, just a minute, because do you want to speak about the same issue?
Basically, yes. I was at the meeting last Thursday, none of you were there, where it was pulled at the last minute, even after the public could talk about things generally, and because that item had been passed on the agenda, they scrapped it at that point, and that meant we couldn't really talk about it as an agenda item. The plan that's been by Pendle Council, the main plan, is not in line with this plan. It talks about conservation areas in the Pendle plan. In this one, it's totally missing. This is if people know Greenfield, this is the land that borders onto Boundary Mill and up to Bankfield and Hargreaves Street, back of the Bronte Carpets. There's a field there which is owned by Lancashire County Council. I had a visit from a developer who's bought that land, which is now corralled up on Bankfield, saying, did you realise that the other part of the land, which is owned by Pendle, is heavily polluted? There's members of the council here who were at earlier meetings several years ago when we took back the allotment site, which was heavily polluted with asbestos, oils and refuge. And also the Japanese knotweed is still there. And that was part of the agreement with the buyer of the land who's corralled it off, that Pendle Council would get rid of the knotweed, which it hasn't done yet. So he's in conflict with that. The letter I've got from him points out that the Lancashire County Council land, which is the field, is going up for auction in the next few weeks, and it is being sold for residential development. Now, this is a conservation area that's been there 20, 30 years, and this is the land that people can walk past. It has wildlife in it, it has deer in it, we have loads of owls and bats and things in that area, and yet Lancashire County Council have decided they're going to sell it for under auction. Now, the residents in that area and also some of the people who have Pendle dogs in need have approached Lancashire County Council over the last few months, asking them, can they buy it? The answer has always been no. So there's a real conflict about this, and the environmental plan doesn't address any of these in it. Also, Greenfield is one of the most historic places in Colne. It's got the oldest inhabited house in Colne, and it has a lot of history. That is totally missed out of the environmental plan. It talks about lots of other things, but it doesn't talk about that. So I find that the environmental plan is good. I agree with it, but it's lacking in definition. It's got loads of photographs, but come on, you know, like holiday snaps, they don't really give you the definition you need to be able to look at this environmental plan and do it better. I think it's in conflict with the Pendle plan. And I think if one gets out before the other, it's going to cause all sorts of problems to the people of Pendle and also Colne.
Thank you, Graham. Councillor Hurley, you want to speak?
As far as I'm aware, it's not referencing the fact.
No, it is actually in Regulation 16 consultation now. At the end of that consultation period, that is when it is examined by an independent examiner.
Follow on from that, I mean, I find it unsurprising that people do get confused about what reg it's at and what isn't an appropriate response to each of those stages, because Pendle Borough Council's response was wholly inappropriate for a Reg 16 consultation. And I know that they're going to be informed of that, and they're only going to speak about that in a minute. But I would also like to raise the point that the neighbourhood plan is subject to a health check by locality, who are the premier lead of people who advise local authorities on health checks and on neighbourhood plans. And as far as they're concerned, it has their unqualified support, and they are horrified at the response that there's been, which they find is completely inappropriate. And they have never encountered a planning authority reacting in the way that Pendle Borough Council have. The comment should be related to whether or not it meets basic condition. The time for I don't want this in, I don't want that in, this is what it should say. These are the greenfield sites that should be there, these are the ones that should be there. That should say them. That's gone. And you can make those comments if you like, but they're not appropriate at this stage. And as you know, I've written to Rose to ask her if it happened with her knowledge, what thinking was behind allowing due process to be ignored in that way, but I haven't had its comments. As you know, because I put you in.
Yeah. But I'm in the dark about all the, you know, I'm not on the neighbourhood plan. I'm not on the neighbourhood plan group. I wasn't at the P&R. I'm not a Pendle Council, so I don't know what's gone on underneath all this. All we've heard is
Rehash everything they said at Reg 14. Locality said everything that was said at Reg 14 was addressed as far as they're concerned. The plan passes there. It gets over all the hurdles as far as they're concerned. And extra expense was gone to go through that health check to make sure that everything was as it should be. And now Pendle Borough Council are just saying the same things again. And the flow chart they provided for allocating green spaces is 1,000 times more onerous than the one provided by the NPPF. There'd be nowhere allocated for green space. And when you look at the housing shortage in Nelson and Briarfield, it makes me wonder if the talking isn't about sabotaging plans so that home afterwards or the short plan from Briarfield and Nelson. And this is revenge. They want to build on that, and now they can't. This is their response.
Well,
Childish and inappropriate.
the right to build on the for us as well.
We're past that stage now. We are past that stage. We are at grade 16.
So we just have that, and we just have to go, well, more bad, we're going to have to lose it, stop, and have houses built there. Because too late to grow our houses, too late, we're going to have to construct it.
If you're going to follow the procedure, opportunities were given when it was at Reg 14. When it went to Reg 15, every comment that was made was looked at, and as far as locality is concerned, addressed.
We don't want them to be comments from the public, and all of them are either legit in your rolling period.
According to locality, that was an unusually high response, according to locality. And
No.
73 people actually.
well, you were an opportunity to put a poster in your shop, so you knew about it.
But people didn't realise that the house of green space and stuff and protected the widow.
Well, I
Can I? No. No. Did you want to say something, Jonathan? Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. This is a public forum, and you said what you want to say. I mean, you do know that it's not really now. It's moved on to Pendle Council and that. So, you know, we can't actually. Yeah.
Chair, two things. One, it doesn't, well, actually it doesn't say it on here, but the theory is we're not supposed to have a big debate at this stage, and as I understand it at the moment, the report is to be discussed at another meeting of Pendle Council.
Oh,
Well, there you are.
okay, yeah.
So everybody has the
That's not correct.
Oh.
Isn't that it?
Oh,
13th of October is Cone area for this day. We've had that confirmed.
right. So that's
There-
not the.
there-
Not, that's
Not that
it's
it.
not.
there are other problems as well in that P&R meeting was not legitimate in that it didn't have the right number of days because of the mourning period. So anything that was decided at that will have to be rubber stamped, decided again at some other point. So I think no, I'm not going to make the political point that I could, but there are people who are on Pendle Council and on the Policy and Resources Committee who are also big members on and drivers behind the neighbourhood plan. So I think someone should have tried to talk to the officers and try and sort out things before it went to a meeting in the first place. But I'll leave that there until we get to the item further in.
So we're going to park it there, but can I thank you for coming and having your say, because you can stay if you want. And yeah, yeah. But the member who was going to give the update isn't here tonight. I think Gina's got a few things, haven't you?
Yeah, I will save it for the item later on, but the gist of it is just that obviously there's going to be another meeting to discuss it, which hasn't actually been scheduled yet. I've had confirmation today that she's not had a chance to do it yet.
I would be very interested to know what Jonathan was like today. To be able to say what people are interested in trying to get all the information back.
Can I suggest that we bring that out more?
We could do that if that's what members want. Are you happy with that, everybody? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I was going to say that it's I've been on the neighbourhood plan working group since day one, so that's over 7 years ago. It's 8 years in May, from what I can recall. We have consulted to death. We couldn't have consulted any more, and it's a bit unfair for people to turn around at this late stage when we're at a point at which the inspector is going to comment at some point later on, where we want some more sites including. And as far as I understand, the green spaces in Waterside, the majority of which fall in open countryside, are protected by default anyway, as far as I'm aware. If I'm wrong, please let me know, because I'm not totally au fait with how the whole thing works. But no, sorry, I'm speaking at the moment. So to come to a meeting 7.5 years after we introduced the concept of the neighbourhood plan, which is designed by default to protect the countryside, is really unfair to kind of like levy this criticism against the council when we've worked and worked to get it as right as possible. And we like I said at the outset, we've consulted on this for numerous times, social media, newspapers, actual physically in this building at the weekends. So, you know, nobody has ever mentioned open spaces in Waterside, not even the Waterside councillors as mentioned it. So why is it being brought now? I don't know whether I'm even allowed to ask a member of the public the question, to be fair, because that's technically what you are. It's just really frustrating that we're so close to having it approved. And when you bear in mind the fact that we did get it, we paid extra to have it checked by localities, as far as I'm aware, to make sure that it was watertight before it went to Pendle. Like, what are we even doing? What are we doing here? Now we're like stuck like lemons, aren't we?
Well,
after consulting to death on it. Yes, I can. Yeah, it's with the greatest respect to that, it's wrong. The planning department's wrong because the localities have the say. Liz has said it, they are the Rolls Royce. So I'm sorry, at this late stage, it's really unfair to come in and really try to almost attack the council. I'm not into social media, tit for tat. No, we're doing item 10 now. We brought item 10. Yes, yeah, we brought item 10 forward so we could try and engage. So that's what I was hoping to. I was just trying to get that point across, and we have. I don't know how best. How else? What else can we do now to protect Colne, because we've done it to death?
Well, I've got David Clegg who wants to speak first. David?
I didn't intend speaking on this, Chairman. I've always, not deliberately, but I've always kept well away from neighbourhood plan, because when it started at first, there was one representative from each ward, and Joe particularly wanted to do it when it started, and I let Joe do it, and I kept away from it. And I thought, well, there's no point joining it halfway through when Joe was no longer here, and I've kept out of it. But I feel it's got to the stage now where I've got to say something. And before I finish what I want to say, I want to ask Gina 2 or 3 questions. One is, am I right in thinking when it went to Regulation 15, we haven't actually put it out to consultation? It is the job of Pendle as the local planning authority to put it out to consultation, and that they have in fact put it out to consultation, not us. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is. It is the local authority's job to put a plan to Regulation 16 consultation if they're happy with it.
And the second question, Chairman, before I come to what I want to say after, in the documentation that goes along with this, sort of the instructions of the way forward for Pendle Council at this stage, does it not say in that documentation that unless Pendle Council are sure that in its present form our submission is accurate and correct, they should not at that stage put it forward for consultation unless they feel happy with it? Is that true?
That is true. Basically, any issues should be brought up at Reg 15 following submission to the local authority. Then anything can be ironed out, and then obviously when the local authority are happy, they then put it forward to Reg 16 consultation, which is what Pendle have done.
So I've got...
No. Can I carry on now,
Yes.
Chairman?
Yes, you can carry on.
Carrying on from there now. Well, we all will remember when we started the neighbourhood plan in the early stages, we couldn't put anything in it that directly contradicted with anything that Pendle had in their plan. They had to marry up with one another. They couldn't contradict one another. Now, we've got to the stage now where technically, for whatever reason, Pendle have scrapped their plan and they are starting again. And Liz has mentioned part of it. Things are different for them now because they have decided to do something different with Gib Hill. So that is no longer housing land. So the numbers are drastically different. And our plan is in front of theirs now. And it's racing away and it'll get to the gatepost before theirs does. So they are now in a position where they have to really not contradict with ours. And what Pendle Council are deliberately trying to do is to scupper ours so that ours can be made to conform with what they think they might want to put in their new plan, and they haven't even started it yet. And the only people who have any indication at all as to what might be in their new plan at this stage, because it hasn't been to committee, are the planning officers. And I think Pendle, over the years, 30 years ago, when I first joined Pendle, it was a good council. And now I have got a different opinion of it. And I think Pendle has got it in itself into a position, and some people at Pendle are not going to like this, but I'm going to say it. I think Pendle have got themselves into a position now where the tail's wagging the dog. And I think there's very little doubt about that. And I am actually disgusted with what they have done. They should not have put it out to consultation if they weren't happy with it. For them to put it out with consultation, which indicates to everyone that up to then they are happy with it, and then to start criticising it, I think is out of order. And I might say something else later on, Chairman.
Liz.
Yeah, it was just to say that the person Howard was alluding to when he wasn't making a political point did try to make sure that what happened in PNR was correct, given the time and everything. But I'm afraid Rose overruled her. So it wasn't that efforts weren't made to make sure that what happened at that meeting was the right thing. And the next thing I want to say is that the working group had the same person representing Waterside, as I understand it, for the full 7 years without making a political point. Well, she may not have been a councillor, but she was on for 7 years, on from the beginning, and she forgot Lenches. So, you know, the idea of having somebody on from each ward was so that each ward would be equally represented. So, you know, if there's an issue over what has happened in Waterside, that needs to be taken up with the person that represents you. No, but what you've mentioned the green spaces in Waterside and how Waterside has been selected for special treatment by being ignored and forgotten about. Okay. Well, as regards viability as well, the locality is making a special case with Kong to find novel and unique ways to make sites viable that would normally not be viable to developers. And so extra special care has been taken to make sure that any sites that are selected are viable. Now, it's up to locate. If locality, well, I don't know what specific issues you're referring to. I'm addressing the correct procedure. If Pendle Borough Council had issues, those issues should have been raised at the correct time. The way they've responded has confused people, has made people angry, has led to quite a lot of abuse for a particular councillor on your Facebook page. You refer constantly to the planning department as your friends, which I think it's really inappropriate that they should be seen that way, because the way they are behaving shows that they seem to have some kind of affiliation.
Accuse people of doing things in the council. Can we try to
Well, no, because I couldn't bear it, but I
Well-
do get screenshots of the things that are said.
Well, I've got Neil who wants to say something.
So, obviously, I have been very active in Waterside because I've been in hospital. I'm poorly, and I don't think I should get too involved. There's too many cooks at the moment, so I'm just gonna hang about and go where I think I should go later, not this minute, because I'm new to it and I don't want to step on anybody's toes. We all agree on the plan. We all agree that it's a good plan. All we got to do is fine tune it. I mean, yes, it's too late for this and too late for that, but you still got a voice. You still make your point. There's no issues that. Whether it actually, it doesn't really matter. But your point's your point. So we can do that. And I think if nearly every councillor in this room has said that the planning officers are wrong or out of order or not today, or every one of us have said it, every one of you. So therefore, we shouldn't focus on each other and other things in different departments. We should just make sure we get to the planning officers and deliver something that's tangible, that's not name calling, that's not something positive, and that we all agree on and we all get on with. So apparently there's an update that's already been put out. Is that correct?
No, but the agenda item says to receive an update on the progress of the project. So I was going to ask if we could have.
Can we see the update? Is the update available?
We've not got an
Might be-
update
it might
in
be verbal.
writing.
It is
It's verbal.
Okay, then we should get it on paper and get it out to people and then see where we are at that time. I mean, really, we can't turn back time, but what we can do, which we're not doing, is working together. I mean, everybody here wants the best for the residents of Colne. Everybody. There's not one person here who want, green spaces, who wants their own, special area looking after. So I just think we should get together rather than, back and that sort of thing. And I think if we work together, we'll get what we want. Everybody will get what they want if we work together. But it's pointless, disagreeing on things when you should sit around the table with a cup of tea, coffee, and talk about things. So I do apologise for the Waterside people that I haven't been there when I should have been, but I have my health to look after, but I'm getting back slowly, and I will contribute to Waterside, and to you, Emma, and you. I'll put my effort into you
Right.
when I'm able. Thank you.
Right. So we're on item 10. We have got an update from Gina, who's spoken to Sarah, who's given us some points, but none of us were there at the meeting. So I'll see what Gina has to report to us.
Right, yeah, I will just say, obviously, you all know that we submitted the documents under Reg 15 to Pendle being the local authority. At that stage, any issues they had with that plan should have been brought to our attention. Instead, they said that it was looking like it was well on the way to meeting all the basic conditions, and it was fit for consultation. So from that, we were actually happy that they turned it around as quickly as they had. However, the P&R meeting last week was to approve a statement from Pendle Borough Council, which would be the formal response from them to the neighbourhood plan for the Reg 16 consultation. This statement has not been approved, and it was pulled from the agenda. Well, it wasn't pulled, it was delayed, basically put forward to have a separate meeting to discuss the Colne neighbourhood plan. So I've spoken to the administrators today at Pendle, and they have confirmed that that meeting hasn't been scheduled yet. But she will let me know as soon as she has done. And she said it would be at Nelson Town Hall. So
At Nelson Town Hall.
Nelson Town Hall.
yes, but obviously we don't know when. just yet. Now we have now won an additional package with locality. They are offering to work with Pendle Borough Council and Colne Town Council to get to a statement of common ground, to work through all the issues. Basically, this will take place after the Reg 16 consultation has finished, so we can take into account all the comments that have come through, and they have awarded us another package so that they can work with us to ensure that this goes through to independent examination. The thing that I would like to mention is that without the Colne neighbourhood plan, protection for Colne is very limited. And with the high housing figure that has been associated with the local plan part 1, a lot of our green spaces are, you know, they're vulnerable, yeah, very vulnerable. So we're in a position to get the Colne neighbourhood plan through, to get that level of protection. Once it's actually made, changes can be made, but not until it's actually gone through. It's like Liz said, at this stage, Regulation 15, Regulation 16 is not the place to add to it or remove policies or add policies. That was all done at Regulation 14. What we need to do now is get behind the plan. Obviously, the locality are willing to work with us because they feel that we are being unfairly treated and that we need to come to a solution. They have assessed the plan. They said that it meets all the conditions. They even said that all our sites are viable. We have the evidence that goes behind it. We spent additional money to get that evidence based on the comments that came through at Regulation 14. So we have tried to address everything that Pendle have come up with. And
you don't know what you don't know, you never know, do you? And if you've got a plan within Pendle, within Colne, and it's not been highlighted within the plan.
Can we draw item 10 to a close then? No.
this,
Oh, yeah, I thought you'd finished, sorry.
so we really need to get behind it, and locality are trying to work with us in order to do that. That is going to be the best protection we can get for our green spaces in particular. Without that, it is vulnerable for planning applications coming through. So at the end of the consultation, obviously we will hear from locality. There will be probably quite a few meetings with the planning officers. They are the overseeing body for the neighbourhood plans. All the funding, they sort of comes through them, the processes.
Is it a government thing?
It's a quango. It gets the money from government, and if you go on, I think it's locality.org.uk or something. I can't say. Well, actually, if you put neighbourhoodplanning.org, that goes to it. Sorry, Gina.
Yeah, so they are fully behind our plan, and they have assessed it and say that it does meet the basic conditions, and that any independent examiner is likely to come to the same conclusion. So until we have this meeting and until the consultation has finished, then obviously we can work with locality to try and iron out these issues, and then organise the examiner.
I think my issue is obviously for our comment on the local plan. Obviously, the one got to October 17. And it all just feels a little bit up in the air, we're not really know whether to tell people to comment on it or not comment on it. But just to, the planning department summary did say that with relatively minor amendments, it can be modified to ensure it does meet the various conditions. So I think that fine, but then I'll find the appendix 2. So can you understand where I'm coming from? Then I find the appendix 2 and that it's completely within 6 of the edge. So no, I'm just confused. Tell me, well, comment on this plan, it's the best thing to call when I've read all this. And it contemplated finished on 17 times with the house, and now I don't know what to tell people, because I still feel a bit confused about where they're at, if we don't even know when the meeting's going to be.
No, we don't. No.
It feels like the consultation shouldn't be happening to me until where we don't.
Well,
Chair, we're beginning to go around in circles. What I was going to suggest was, I didn't know about the locality bit, but at the very least, we as the town council should talk to whoever the people are at Pendle Council to try and find some common ground. I've spent quite a bit of time, what day are we today? Today and yesterday, trying to make sense of all the stuff. I think the appendix 2 looks worse than it is when you look at some of the, because a lot of the points on it are just, it shouldn't say draft here because it's now finished, and they're minor drafting points, I was going to say, to do it. Now, there are bigger issues about whether some things that have been designated local green spaces should be. One of the arguments in that appendix 2 is that if something already has a designation of a concept of a nature reserve or a sports facility, it doesn't need to be a local green space as well. Now, that's a point that can be argued and come to some discussion. But if people want to comment on it, they can comment on it. And I apologise if it was Rose Rouse that made, or Rolls Royce as I prefer to call her, because I get the impression that they could have appointed somebody better when they appointed them, just from the fact that the meeting was not called legitimately. That is the biggest thing in the against Pendle, that they couldn't even read the rules and regulations properly, which as a town council we did, and in fact on that point I want to thank the people in the town hall that very quickly arranged the flag to be at half-mast, the condolence book, and so on, because that was exemplary. But the way that Pendle have gone about this is, I don't like to use the word incompetent, but I think it is, and the book, I'm afraid, stops at the top.
thank you. Mark.
Yeah, just one thing, Mary, just to draw matters to a close. Gina, am I correct in saying anybody can make any comment whatsoever, but it's down to the examiner whether they take them on board or not? So you could say, we'd like this or that. Then the examiner, when the inspector, will say, no, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. So you can comment whatever you want.
Last point.
You have higher seniority over the whole plan.
No, I don't think so. So what comes first?
What comes first? What comes first then? So national plan comes first and Pendle will have to tie into the plan. Yes, that's because what I've said to you before is that we've missed conservation areas out of the plan. They're totally out of the plan. We're just here in the Pendle plan.
Yeah.
That's the point I was making of double a double bubble, that the Greenfield one, I think is down as a local green space, but it's not down as it already has protection, for example, as a nature reserve. The same with the Alkin Coats woodland and Old House playing fields, which have been designated in our plan as local green space, but already had protection under different bits of legislation and designation. If I don't know whether there's any sites of scientific, special scientific, whatever it's called, whatever the next one is, within the neighbourhood plans. But if it did, that I think trumps the other thing.
Yeah.
And the Pendle plan, until that gets on, we don't know what's in it. And if we have got things designated in the core neighbourhood plan, the Pendle local plan will have to conform.
Yeah, and as per David's comment, yeah, and of course you once it's passed, we can make changes to it. Then you must remember that.
Yeah.
It's like Brandon said, conservation areas have their own designation. So, for example, according to your plan, it doesn't. Albert Road is already a conservation area. This is like 1984 or something. So it doesn't necessarily need to go in the plan. It's already a conservation area.
But you've got 4 conservation areas in Colne. There's 5. That is a greenfield, and you've missed it completely.
But it's still a conservation area.
According to your plan, it's not. It's not even in your plan.
But it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be. That is being an amendment. That will be changed. I would have said there's little bits that need to be changed in there. It's like where it's.
Yeah, I don't think we can explain it, but we can't make any decisions. We can just try to help you to understand it. That's all we can do. Yeah. Well, Liz, last speaker. Oh, you did, yeah. Oh.
Okay, just to emphasise, as far as locality is concerned, it 100% passes the basic conditions. If anybody should know, they should know. Changes can be made after the plan is made. And I can't even remember the other thing I was going to say now. It's gone completely out of my head. I don't know, but we should get behind this plan, basically.
David, last word.
Yes, Chairman, just to finish off, and I'm going to be cynical because I always get accused of being cynical, so I will be. And I think the situation with this is that now Pendle have got themselves in a hole by scrapping their plan and starting again. They have ended up behind us. They are also in a position where they cannot find many, if any at all, suitable sites in Nelson and Briarfield that stack up as a housing site to put forward. They have got themselves into a position whereby if they don't offload some of the houses that should be built in Nelson and Briarfield into Colne and Westgraven and several other smaller places, they are stuck with their plan. And I'll be as cynical as that. And they have deliberately scuppered our plan or tried to scupper our plan to get theirs rolling and going first. So we've got to follow them. And I know you might think I'm being cynical, but that is exactly what I think is happening. And that's what I meant by the tail is wagging the dog. The officers are telling councillors what to do. And that report that went to P&R last week wasn't a councillor's report. It wasn't a councillor's decision. It was an officer's report that were thrown on table in front of them. And I finish now, Chairman.
Thank you. Well, that's the sum total of what we can tell you. Okay.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. But thank you for coming. And I hope you get to know this date as soon as possible. I think that's for the Colne area. Now it may be on the Colne area agenda, I don't know. But
I spoke to
Well, it should come to P9.
I spoke to the administration today and they said it wouldn't be on the 13th. It wouldn't.
Well,
Well, the person I spoke to,
There's going to be a reconciliation meeting, so it might be a bill outrage. I have no idea.
I think it will be a public, I think it will be a public meeting. But the lady I spoke to is the one that would organise the meeting.
No.
mm. Okay, yeah,
They have agendas in front. You don't.
No doubt about that.
Absolutely.
They want a concrete code, so
That's to be right.
one particular.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can we,
It's not fair.
move on with the meeting, please?
Keep an eye on that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So item 6, to receive a schedule of payments and spending commitments of the 22nd of September. Is there any issues? Oh no, that's another one, sorry, yes. Any questions on that long?
We usually get 2 of these, or is this an attempt to? We usually get, and I can't remember what the value is. One's over.
Oh, yes,
I
yeah,
did send it out.
no,
No. But if they're all on here and these are signed, we
They are all on there.
They're all mixed up on here and
yes, yeah,
they're all there.
yeah.
so any questions on that long list? No? Can I have a proposer then to accept them? I've got Howard as a proposer and Mark as a seconder. All those in favour? Item 6B is to receive a summary budget spending commitment as at 22nd of September. Again, is there any issues with that budget that's been provided? No? Well, can I ask for a proposer then that we accept that? Right, okay, Howard, a seconder, please. Jonathan, all those in favour? Okay. Item 7 is a grant application to consider and discuss the grant application received from Park Primary School. What are any, can I have the views of the committee, please, of the councillors? Anybody got any views? We're being asked for £2,500, I think. Yes, David.
Well, seeing as no one else seems to want to have any views yet, I'll go first. Without juggling some money about somewhere, I can't see a budget heading that we can take this from because we don't have a grant for this specific purpose. However, I think it probably is for a useful purpose because having been a school governor myself at 2 or 3 different schools, and one of them I've been with for over 30 years now, there is a lot of a problem in various parts, particularly of Colne, and probably the rest of Pendle as well, probably all East Lancashire as well, whereby because of the deprivation of the area, there is a certain amount of children start school at school age and go into reception class with, let's say, setting off a couple of steps behind where they should be, and a lot of that is down to the home life and the deprivation of the area. So I think in that sense it's something that could be very useful. However, what I do think we need to be very careful of is, I think we need to be 100% sure that children from anywhere in Colne, and irrespective of which school they're going to end up going to, need to have equal rights to take part in this, the parents. And what I wouldn't want to see happening, and it does happen, is on some of the year groups, on different years of school starting, when kids start school, sometimes there are less children available that year than others, and sometimes there are more. And sometimes it's difficult to get a place at school because it's oversubscribed. And some years they're undersubscribed by a certain, a fair amount. And I wouldn't like this to be used as a means of trying to recruit children to a certain school. And from that point, I would think if we do grant it, there could be a chance whereby other schools may want to do a similar thing. And you might end up with the 6 primary schools in Colne. And we can't start giving money out to 6 primary schools, because at the end of the day, it's all down to education. And really, Lancashire County Council ought to be providing this. But in reality, I don't have a problem with it, because I think it's something that could be useful, and it might make some of our kids coming along in the next few years be in a lot better position when they start school, to start off on an even footing for people who live in a more lucrative area.
Thank you. Any other views? I've got Neil and Howard.
That I want to say that if you give money, I'm all for them, I'm all for this project. But like you said, it's 6 other schools, and once you give them to one, you give to all. And if we do decide to give money, to park, it should be usable by other schools. And that way, we're not paying £2,500 to every single school, which we have money we haven't got. So if they're willing to share share the project, I think it would be need something, because like you say, with the pandemic and things, people are behind anyway, especially in cold, and I find when this is in the Waterside area now, which is apparently one of the more deprived areas in the country. I don't know how to get that, but yeah. Well, I'm for
Howard?
It does say in the main outcomes, all primary schools in Colne will benefit from this provision. Unfortunately, there's then a comma and it says potentially. So I think we have to make it conditional that they write to the other school or contact, so that parents who go to West Street or Sacred Heart or Lord Street are aware of, or even Privet, are aware of the provision. And I think we should say, yeah, we'll do it this year, but it'll have to take its chance next year amongst the the wider budgetary restraints.
Yeah, well, we'll have to, if they're not doing what we ask them, then they won't get it next year, will they?
But I think in the year, this year, yes, and then next year we do it again. Maybe I'll put other schools as well.
David?
Can I just ask a legal question? Does it not say in our grant application rules that you can't give to other authorities and other bodies that have a responsibility?
It is, but I'm not sure whether this is education. It's sort of a preschool thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Education is obviously LCC's remit. They are responsible. So we cannot provide any support for education. This, however, is a mother and toddler group. So whether you would, yeah.
And it's not in nursery, is it? It's just and it's not in a school, is it? It's in well, they're hoping to have it in SEAG building, aren't they?
Yeah, I think SEAG have offered them free rent, but they're just going to charge them utilities. I think that's what they said. But I do think that it should be open to an open group and not just primarily linked to Park Primary.
Yeah.
how do we have next year that?
Well, they're using their staff, aren't they? But they're what they call
They
it.
want to use their staff for
other probably. I think, I don't know, I think they need to speak to the other schools and see if maybe they could all do a combined project together
Yeah,
rather than.
for all children in Colne. Yeah.
need a bigger building there for.
Possibly.
So I ask people that think should we grant this now and then look at it.
I think we should grant it subject to talks with Park to make sure that
Well, the schools
we are convinced that other schools are
Yeah.
taking part.
Because it's not in a school. It's outside a school. Boundaries, if you will. It can be visited by anybody and
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
My personal opinion is give them the grant with conditions that anybody else can come on. And then next year, look at all the schools and contacting LCC and get a problem from them. That'll take it out our image.
I think you'll be lucky getting money from Lancashire. No. Yeah, I think we could say they must advertise it round all schools.
So could I move that we grant them the 2,500 subject to conditions?
And have we got a seconder for that? You, Howard, right? All those in favour?
By the way, it is called Code-wide.
Yeah. Well, as long as it's advertised in the other schools for the. Yeah. Okay, but only for this 12 months, yeah? Right. The next item is Gibb Hill Nature Reserve. To discuss an annual contribution to the Gibb Hill Working Group because of the benefit to the local community. Can I have any questions, issues, concerns? Do you want to say anything to paint
We
a
didn't
picture?
have a specific sum in mind. It was just obviously Gibb Hill is in Colne, and hopefully, as long as Neil doesn't manage to sabotage that, it will become a nature reserve. And it would just be nice.
Watson, yeah, not you. Yeah.
Sorry.
Neil Watson, not you.
Did I say Neil?
You said Neil. You said Neil.
Oh, right, not you. Yeah. Yes, it would just, I think, be nice for Colne to show a commitment. I mean, Nelson really want to take over the whole thing. But it's much better that it remains in the hands, I think, of Pendle Borough Council, because Philip Riley is marvellous and I think he'll do a great job of managing it. But it is going to take a lot of commitment from a lot of different people. And it would just be nice to know that in theory, the town council would be willing to make some kind of contribution on an annual basis. Like I say, we didn't have a figure in mind, but there's going to be all sorts of things like working with the local schools. It's very close to 2 secondary schools and 2 primary schools, 3 secondary schools actually, and 2 primary schools. There's going to be a lot of projects that take place, and yeah, it would just be nice to know that we were sharing the cost and sharing the burden of working.
Has Nelson Town Council made a commitment?
Well, other than saying they want to take over the whole project, no, and I don't think that they've got the funds to make much of a commitment. But as I say, it was just something that we discussed, and we thought it would be interesting to find out if this council is willing to make a contribution on an annual basis, even a small one, to making the whole thing happen.
Yes, Jonathan.
I think it's probably not dissimilar to the time when we thought about the Colne in Bloom situation, where we not only we didn't make a contribution, we kind of like took it out under our own wing, so to speak. So I think And that makes the town look really nice in the summertime, especially. And with it being links to ecology and countryside, I can't see. I think we kind of almost, I hate to use the word, but almost set a precedent in that we've said we support Cone in Bloom.
That's a voluntary group though, isn't it? Not owned by Pendle Council.
Okay. Right, well, I can let Liz kind of come back on that one, perhaps. I'm not entirely sure how that will be different because they're still volunteers working on Give Hill, aren't they? So surely a small contribution is not going to hurt us. And, we spend enough money on the Blues Festival every year, which only lasts for 3 days, whereas spending a small contribution on Gibby Hill could benefit the town throughout the year.
I think Pendle Borough Council own the land, but it still has to be decided exactly who is going to manage the land.
But you may have said Phil.
Sorry, well, Phil Riley is the officer at Pendle who
Yeah,
looks
he
after
is.
green
Very good.
spaces and things, and he's been very active in getting volunteers together to do various things at the moment, and I feel that having him there will be great. But it will be a voluntary body that looks after the hill, whether that's a group of different bodies or a specific body, that has to be decided. But it is going to take quite a bit to kind of keep on top of things, because it is a place that's used for camping by young people, and it requires a lot of litter picking and a lot of goodwill and volunteering from people. So we need to be able to raise the funds to generate that, to get that off the ground, to educate the young people that use it every day to get to and from school, to be more involved in looking after it. And as you say, it is ecologically rich, and for it to become richer in species, it does need some kind of management. So yeah, obviously there'll be appeals for funds and various grants, but yeah, it would be nice if Colne showed willing to make some kind of contribution.
I would just point out though that obviously Gib Hill is not the only nature reserve in Colne. There are quite a few others. I did speak with David Clegg. We had a discussion and wondered if we were thinking of contributing to this kind of thing, sort of from an annual point of view, whether we have maybe a larger pot that all the nature reserves can bid for, if they've got certain projects coming up, or whether that would be an idea.
So in theory, something David, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, what I talked to Gina about was there's about half. It might be 40%, it might be 60%, I don't know, but we'll call it about half. There's about half of Gib Hill in Colne and about half of it, roughly, in Nelson. I don't know exactly what the figures are, but there's some in Colne and some in Nelson. And the same does apply to Ball Grove, because although the Ball Grove Park and the lake and the shop and where the play area is all wholly introdden, the nature reserve is different. There's about half the nature reserve is actually within the boundary of Colne. It's in our parish. So there's Ball Grove as well. There's the Greenfield Nature Reserve, which is obviously in Waterside, and there is the Alkincoats Woodland Nature Reserve, which is in Vivery Bridge. So there's actually 4 altogether, and probably we are out of all the different towns in Pendle, we've probably got more nature reserves than any of the others having 4, because some of them don't even have 1. So we've probably got the most. And if you look back to 2008, when this council was first formed, I don't honestly think we have ever given anything to one or any of the nature reserves. And I think it would be a good gesture to create a pot. Now this has come from Liz, and because of Gib Hill, And I think we ought to be fair to everyone and create a pot of money and put X amount of money into it as a budget each year and allow all 4 of the nature reserves to bid into that pot. Once that pot's done and empty, well, that's it. It's gone. You can only spend it once until the following year when we put some more in. And I think that is a fairer way forward. But I might get shot with some people for thinking that. And I just discussed it with Gina.
Hopefully the whole will all want money if you, at the same time, if you see what I mean. There'll be some bigger jobs that they'll be looking to do the year after, won't they, and things like
If we, Chair, for you, if we do this, we form a pot for each nature reserve, then surely we better be very careful that we issue each nature reserve the same amount of money. I know some projects will cost more in one nature reserve than the other. It just said it was £5,000 in the pot, and one nature reserve said I need 4 to do all this. That only leaves £1,000 for the other 3. So I think we should be.
But some will be new and need a lot of work, and others will already be maintained quite a bit.
Yeah,
so might not.
But there wouldn't be a race to get money out the pot.
Well, they'd have to have a proper.
I don't think it would, Chairman, because they probably won't all try and bid into it on every year. They'll probably come forward with they'll think of a project they want to do. It's probably easier for Gibril from the beginning because they're starting from scratch. But they'll think of a project, they'll bring that project forward, they'll find other funding for it as well, and then they'll come and put a bid in to our pot. So I'm not expecting all 4 will be wanting a great big stash of money all on the same year. And I think it will work out. But I better not preempt anything, but I was thinking of putting more than £5,000 in it. But
if I was in charge of something, we'll just say name first, and so I bought my money.
yeah.
I would put, I would put a big straight away for X amount of pounds. I was just trying to, I go for it, and then yes, what I bought, and yes, let's
Well,
money.
If that was the case, then the bid that was the best value, or seemed to be the best value at the time, would be the one who won the bid, wouldn't it? So what
I'd like to try and do is to try and move something along those lines, and then referring to it's probably going to be nearly Christmas time because we have to get the dentist sorted out. It will come to later tonight on the agenda. But when it comes to budget time, that we set a figure to put in that budget for next year, for the next reserve. And we put a new heading, I'm proposing we put a new heading in the budget this year, for next year, starting in April. And we put a figure in for what is in that budget, and we're doing the budget down this year. So that's what I'm proposing.
I think it's a brilliant idea. I mean, if you said each year, right, it's May, the money's in the pot, all put your bids in now, then you could decide on the merit of the bids, couldn't you? So then everyone would have a fair crack. And
Jonathan?
I think I've thought, great idea. I just think I've thought of it slightly differently, where they wouldn't even have to put a bid in, they just automatically get the money. They set some every year. Why do they have to put the bid in if you're just going to contribute?
Some might not need it, but
Bulbroach just had thousands spent, and it wasn't, I thought it was Pendle Borough Council, but it was the Rivers Authority, and it must have been tens and tens of thousands.
Okay.
So they, at the moment, and I know it's a visited them, they're not desperately short of funds.
Okay. Well,
Whereas I would imagine Greenfield is, if I know they really suffer. So
If you want to move it.
Those nature reserves could meet together and agree together on projects.
Okay, well, so would this go to FES to suggest a budget figure and then it come back to full council?
Yeah, it'll come in the budget round of meetings, which is going to be a problem in December now, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then we'll figure it.
Okay. All those in favour do that?
Do we have a second?
Have we got a seconder? Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, item 9, grounds maintenance tender documents. What's the? Where are we at?
To explain what this is about now, Well, I've been saying for the last 6 months that we needed to get the tenders ready to go out by August, September at the latest. And we're nearly at end of September and they aren't finished yet. But there's a long story to that. Part of it has been the extra work we've had to do with blues, etc. We've got behind. And it has to go out via contract finder, which Jonathan knows all about how that works. And it's got to go out for a minimum of 6 weeks. So we've got to get the tenders finished, then they've got to go out for consultation for 6 weeks. Then we get the tenders back, and then they're not just simple tenders you can look at in 10 minutes and make a decision. They're quite big tenders, and they'll be for 3 years with an option to extend it by 2 years if they want to, or if we want to, for that matter. And by the time we've got them back, and then taking it to FES to have a preferred tenderer to go with, or tenderers, depending on how many different people win the different tenders. And then it goes to FES, then it has to go to full council to be approved. Yeah, well, and we've got, before Christmas, we've got to set the precept. Without knowing what the tenders are, we can't set the precept. So what I suggested at FES was last week, that I would ask tonight if we would forego the actual tenders having to be agreed before they go out at full council at the October meeting. To gain ourselves a couple of weeks, I want to short circuit it, because there's only 2 tenders basically now to do, isn't there? Yeah, it's the short circuit it on them 2, and for them to go to FES, and for us to give it a good grilling and have a look at it, and then send them out to tender, which gains us 2 weeks, and we've got some sort of a chance then of getting to know how much the tenders are going to cost us and get the preset set in place before Christmas. And that is the reason for wanting it to go to FES. I don't know whether I've explained it well or not, but that was the gist of it.
Makes sense.
Jonathan was at FES last week, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, and David's not here tonight, but
We were all
David appeared to be okay with it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my proposal. That's my proposal. That's what I'm asking.
And have we got a proposer? David?
I'll propose it.
I would second it. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 10 we've already discussed. Yeah.
It didn't that long, did it? It didn't that long, did it?
Yeah. I've done that one. Yeah.
Can I just point,
Item 11, planning.
there's an error on the very last one on the first page. It's 79, not 29. 79 knots drive, not 29 knots drive. Knots mount, sorry.
This is the new one, the latest.
Yeah, the very bottom one on the first page, it says
29,
29, it's number 79 when you look at the plan.
Right, item, the first one is 22/0444/FUL. It's St John Fisher and Thomas More High School. I suppose I should declare, well, I haven't got an interest, I'm not involved in it at all, but my son works there now. No. Have we any issues with this?
It's knock a lot of the temporary stuff out of the way and the dodgy stuff, and
Is there? I've never been up there.
I think it increases the roll from 700 and something to around 900. Primitive, we had one the other week from Primet for similar.
It's county council.
stuff.
There's a shortage of primary school
No,
Yes.
no,
Senior
secondary school.
secondary school places, and they won't put them in the new build schools because they were, like Pendle, Vale and Marsden Heights got, a big new school, didn't they? So there's only really Privet and Fishermore that they can expand. Okay. Are we happy with that?
The only downside I can find with it, Chairman, I don't have a problem with it in principle, but the only downside I have with it, they do lose a slight amount of car parking space, which can sometimes up there be at a premium, as we both know. But other than that, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. All right. No comment then.
What was the extension requested?
It's just the time that they want to comments in by, it's after, before this meeting, so we asked for.
Well, number 2, it said no.
No, the extension wasn't refused, the application was refused.
It was refused on delegated.
Number 3, it's extension granted. It's 22/0533/HH. Erection of a single-storey front and rear extension and attached garage. Any comments?
Really no.
I don't think that's it.
No, that's not that. We've read on.
Keep,
That's
keep
still
going,
Fishermore.
keep going. I think all the ones that say 490 are Fishermore, and then you drag it down.
No, that screen sharing thing is fine.
No, that's Fishermore.
The next one.
The one before that, Stephen.
That's it. It'll be on. Yeah.
I don't think it's a real problem. It only backs onto the garage, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the end. It's the end one.
No comment. Next one is 11 Noiner Avenue, Noiner View, Cold. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think the thing, I would say we welcome it because it's actually, it looks a lot better than I mean, apart from the fact that you've got to twist it around, but you can see stood on its end just in the corner there what it looks like now, which is a sort of bit of a higgledy-piggledy mess that it will tidy it up somewhat. One of the things there, I think, shows bits of polythene, I may be doing a disservice and it may be a sort of proper cover, but not owning a swimming pool in my back garden, I don't know. But the houses down there are huge things anyway, a lot of them. So
Are we saying no comment to it or yeah? The next one is 22/0553 HHO 79 Knots Mount.
Knots Mount. The only thing it doesn't show it on there, but it's actually a terrace block of 4 or 5, I forget the number. But it is relatively small and.
Is it the top house?
No, it's the second one up. It doesn't show the site plan there, but if you imagine the block running that way, it's the second one down. So. But they are, as they say, I think they're fairly pokey. So you can understand why, particularly with money as it is, it's cheaper to bolt this on the back than buy a new one. So again, I'd say no comment.
Okay, the next one is 22/0014/AP. It's an enforcement appeal against appeal against enforcement notice. It's the car wash, isn't it? At the bottom of.
It's car wash and it's the land next to it because there's an enforcement land next to it as well.
Do we just say we support enforcement? Or what?
Well, we can make comments to the inspector, but whether we really want to do, I don't know.
What do we want to do?
Strangely, it was given permission because I had a look this afternoon. In 2015, it was given permission for something, and I can't remember what. Was it?
Yeah, and they put a car wash there instead, didn't they?
Yeah.
Without permission.
It was fine, Steve.
Yeah.
Well,
Good car.
Yeah, it is.
yeah. Right, we'll all declare an interest. We've used it.
What we're saying, no comment or what?
I
No.
think we should, absolutely, I think we should be supporting the enforcement.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be there.
No.
Yeah.
Have to go somewhere else, won't we?
There's a lot of this kind of thing like fire removal in me where.
Oh, there is.
You know, but.
They lost.
Well, they've lost that now, so.
But that, if you let these things slip.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think I've seen them banned somewhere else. I think they're parking on Keighley Road now.
They've got 5 and they've got 2 on Got House Lane, 1 near Woodhead and the other 2 distributed.
The next one is 22/0545/HHO at 4 Carryfield, Colne.
Yeah, it's you can probably see it from your.
No, the hill. It's a different motorway.
He's further up the hill.
Yeah, it's in the
Is
bottom.
it a new bit?
It's the new. It's I think it's the first one. Isn't it?
Or it
It's
last
either the
one?
first or the second. Yeah, but it's.
But I would say, I can't remember what the planning permission does. But sometimes you get a planning condition where you're not allowed to convert the garage.
Which I would suspect is why this is put in. But they don't use the garage now, so it's not going to increase the parking. So
What we're going to say then?
yeah, no comment. The county council don't object. But
The next one is 22/0562 FUL, Unit 2, North Valley Retail Park, North Valley Road. Change of use of the unit to bakery.
It's a bakery as opposed to being like a shop.
no, it's a shop. It's a shop as well.
Or is it a shop as well?
Yeah. Well, it says there. Well, you can't read it, but
Instead of going shop, go on.
yeah.
You know, it has to be both, Chairman, because the original planning permission for the whole of that site is that it has to be retail. There's nothing to stop someone having, you know, a factory or a bakehouse or whatever, but they must have a shop to go with it. Otherwise, it's not retail. It's got to retain some retail. So it has to have it has a cafe and a shop.
So.
Is it behind McDonald's and all that?
It's what was latterly BSW. Before that, it was a car loan place, I think.
Yeah, it's next to the National Play Centre.
Yes, the second building on.
So McDonald's and KFC then, are they not counted as retail?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I thought they were like food.
Well,
The food retail selling.
food.
They are food retail. Yeah. So there's a cafe inside it and a shop. And cafe's got like a gilbert bar, it's quite a few tables.
Yeah, all right.
They're looking at. If you think of the, you know, there's Vantage and there's
Mobile.
Belwell. You know, there's the there's quite a few businesses around there, and you know, there's macadams over the road, so they're probably thinking sell a few
No comment?
vegan.
Was already a horrendous problem I looked at. This is another food eater, wants to better, so it wasn't before, it was something else, non-food related. I think. It probably didn't produce butter. Could we find, is there one bin there, another bin from the top, of what else now,
Well, I think we can ask. We can say, can they put conditions on that they put an adequate number of bins and keep them tidy?
Or keep the frontage.
Yeah, well, all round their curtilage.
No Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Have you got that? Yeah. Enough bins and make sure there's not litter around.
Make sure that when it gets used,
It's emptied. And all round their business.
Yeah. It's next all of them. Yeah, between us.
Right. 20, number 9, 22/0588/HHO, Nunclough Farm Barn, Birchinley Lane. Cool. Side story extension with raised terrace.
although this is almost in the middle of nowhere, if you look at, I'm guessing that in days gone by, it was it says it was the barn. I don't think that the large windows and the roof lights actually blend in with what's already there. I mean, it says they'll use stone, but I'm not so sure that those big picture windows. Yeah. That's better. You know, the building has got, it says timber framed windows, and they want to put powder coated aluminium framed windows
in the room.
Well, but the rest, I mean, that building's been there since whenever, I don't know when it was there, but I don't think it, they're saying natural stone walling blocks, which is to match. But I just think that those windows there are far too big. They don't fit in with the rest of the character of the building on the extension.
Yeah.
What about them in the roof?
Well, the roof might be a little bigger than what's already there. Well,
yeah. No. Well, I don't think they are doors. I think the windows, the door is on the back of it. But even there, that's got 3 roof lights, and the original has got 2 roof lights on a much bigger surface. I just don't think it fits in.
I think a certain person will pick this one up.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they will, but I think in their absence, we ought to say we don't think
the windows are too.
The windows are too big. The roof lights are
too many.
Too many.
Well, we could say we welcome the use of natural materials.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, but the windows are. I mean, I don't know what's on the farm building next.
I think that framed doors.
Well, I thought that, but it actually says aluminium framed windows.
Yeah,
I think I dare say the architect got it on. If you go over the page, please, to a floor plan.
I think the patio doors.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we'll come across to the.
Right down to the floor as well.
Well, don't show the door. Look. If you look on the left, it doesn't show the door. The door is at the back.
It's surely not more than 50%.
Depends, because it's a barn conversion, so it's likely that conditions were put on when
they
it's got a snug. It's got a snug, well, but I don't think it. I don't think it fits. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be as bad if they did it arched.
And so
I mean, it cost a bit more. But
windows on the extension too large.
That's too big.
And too many on the roof. Right.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, the only persons who are going to see it are the people who live in the next far further than the track, aren't they? There's nobody else is going to see it.
yeah, but
Yeah.
and the danger is, oh, you let them do it.
Well, yeah.
So I think we should stick to our goals. Yeah, the long wind. Yeah, we object to the fenestration. What does it say it is? No, it just says a side extension, but when you look at the, sorry, can you go back the other way, Steve?
That's going to be a very lit room, isn't it?
It's going to be very, yeah, I don't know what those, what the dotted things are supposed to be.
You want those dashed?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then rectangles.
Oh, they're the windows.
Oh, yeah, they're skylights, all windows.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Yeah, this time,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Number 10, 22/063
Well,
stroke TPO. It's 3 Ash Street at Craigmore on Beakley Road.
Well,
I couldn't think it doors. Why would you have a terrace outside if there were a window there?
Well,
well,
whatever. And then the last
You're not
one.
going to go through a window, you'll do a terrace, yeah.
You want that room to put there.
Are we all right with that? The TPO?
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah. The last one is 22/0636, another TPO on Bent Lane, Lime Tree. Presume that's got disease or something.
They chop it down. And they probably get
Yeah.
of the trees in the motorway. There were 7 trees and we got them all down. And we got charged.
yeah. The problem has always been when it ends up at magistrates court, they don't treat planning miscreants with the same,
No.
with the severity that they should do in some cases.
Item 12 on the agenda, correspondence received. We've received a letter. Concern the loss of trade.
First of all, it's more than one business that puts all into the groups. And David was saying earlier on the board meeting, we only work certain hours, we don't work Sundays. And whoever makes £1,500 in a week, we do really well. And we earn £1,500 more to do it for our,
It's a little bit more than, it's a little bit better than £1,500 in a weekend, because it categorically says that it's cost them about £1,500 in losses. Now, it was about 7 o'clock at night on the Friday, because I was up here at that time, when the road was closed. It might even have been later, but it certainly wasn't earlier than 7 o'clock. It was certainly later than that. Now, on a Friday and a Saturday, that business operates 9, well, 4:30. So on the Friday, they had been long shut before the road closure went into place for Blues. On the Saturday, they worked 9, well, 4:30 again, and the road closure went in at lunchtime.
Right.
10 o'clock, so that's 6.5 hours. So in 6.5 hours, they're saying they lost £1,500 due to the road closure. And what my comment was, and I said it to Neil and other people in here, and I make no bones about that. I think there are several small businesses in Colne, in Main Street, from Crown right up to top of Skipton Road, who would be jumping about and waving their arms and all sorts if on a regular basis they were to have takings of £1,500 for 6.5 hours opening. And I think they just swing it leg, and that's my honest opinion, and trying to get some money out of us. And that is my honest opinion. And the Blues now, we've had Blues for more than 30 years. I know we haven't had one for 2 years, but that was because of lockdown, and we all know that. And every year there's been a Blues, and we've never had anything like this, somebody trying to claim compensation for us being shut one weekend. And a lot of businesses in town, particularly down bottom end, probably more so, where a lot of pubs and cafes are that take part in Fringe, are quite happy to have the Blues and have the road closures, because it tides them over and makes them a bit of money to let them last out for the rest of the year in lots of instances. And I just think it's over the top, is this, and I think we shouldn't be paying it.
Yeah. I also think, having talked to other businesses, and they say, oh, we've nothing against the Blues, but we just shut because we know it's that weekend, and we just take it as a hit because it's a town thing, and we just shut, like the butchers and, you know, bureaus and, you know, things like that. Yeah.
I'm all for businesses earning money in Colne, as we all are. And to put a claim for £1,500, no, I'm sorry, no. They've had a year's notice, and if they're listening now, they've got another year's notice for that weekend not to book anything in. We do apologise as a council, as a ratepayer, apologise for lack of business and on that weekend, but it's got to be realistic. We all want businesses to do well in Colne, and obviously this business is earning £1,500 a weekend, then they can afford to miss one weekend. I mean, although I want businesses to thrive, putting a compensation claim in, and if we should pay any money, we'll set a precedence for every single business in Colne, which we couldn't afford. So we've got to think about what happens after.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think also, as you say, she's got fair warning now, and it's all an appointments only. So they can, she'll have to just do though. She won't lose any money if she makes the appointments and just shuts on the Saturday, will she?
Will the side roads?
Yeah.
So, for example, Exchange Street from right up there from the bottom, so
You can right up until the main road. You park on the next street. On the other side.
They were blocked.
Down by the pub. That road was shut from quite way down. But all the other roads, if I went to park in Colne or on the Blues, I could.
but what I'm saying, because one of the points actually made is that the client would have to walk the miles through the crimes. I don't think it was a good thing.
You can't do
Exchange Street, a start is out.
Yeah,
Park there or park on Great World.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it's a nice word of welcome, so
Yeah.
understanding concern,
Yeah.
but we should be glad. We're sending a dangerous precedent.
Yeah.
Going on there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think people talk about it. On the surgery.
Yeah.
It also says rowdy crowds. Now, I didn't see any rowdy crowd. There was one little altercation outside here late on the Sunday night. But beyond that, I witnessed none, and I was about all the weekend.
And there were loads of police around, weren't there? You were tripping over them, security and everything.
There were no trouble before 4:13 happening or anything.
No.
We should respond to her nicely. And, you know, with our apologies, but that's the way it is. And, yeah,
We've had it for 30 years and it's
reference to the next month, the dates, roughly the dates.
make her appointments out of that. Are we happy with that? Yeah. Item 13, items for a future month's agenda. Has anybody any items that they want to put on for the future?
I do, yeah. Well, it's right, we'll see. We'll do right this or not. So just lately, I'm on the taxi licensing board, and at this present moment in time, children have discovered eggs, and children see taxis as egg targets. So last night I was at King James Playfield, watching some children throw eggs only at taxis, not at every single car, but at taxis. So I had a word with them, and they stopped. But it's something we should look at, because it's happening all over Colne, kids and eggs. So if the parents could, you know, look at this and wonder where the kids are at 9:30 on a Sunday night, it would be helpful. But it's something that's growing, that needs to be addressed. I've contacted the police, and they're undermanned and can't come out just for some kids throwing eggs. But as we all know, if something hits your car and you're driving down the road, it distracts you, and it will eventually cause an accident. Thank you.
So is it like antisocial behaviour against cars sort of thing?
Taxis.
Taxis on the next meeting.
I've contacted all the agencies, but it's very little you can do unless you catch them. And I told them next time I'll be videoing them and then taking it further. But it's just catching them because they go when they want, how they want.
Yeah. So you want that on a future agenda?
Yeah, just to look at. And if any police ever turn up, well, we can mention it then. No.
Liz, have you got anything?
It's not anything to add. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody, the way you supported the Colne local plan. I was really upset, as you probably could tell, at the way Sarah was thrown to the wolves. No one deserved to get treated the way she did at P&R. So I'm sorry if I was over emotional, and thank you particularly to David Clegg, who was his measured and considered remarks really were excellent, as were Councillor Nixon. So thank you so much for that support for the plan and all the hard work that's gone into it.
Thank you. All right, we'll put thanks on there. Yeah. Well, I don't know what happened at P&R, but I know it was a big shock, whatever happened. Because thank you. Well, thanks for your contribution to tonight's meeting. So I'll close the meeting at 10 to 9.
There's the point, block on the end. Well, wait, I've got to face 20.
Yeah.
That basically was some real.
In the way the last question of Regina, that was really Regina and Riley.
Yeah.
Doing it really.
Well, I want to be honest, as I can say it now, it's turned off.
Is it turned off?
Not for the long.